important topic on accelerate action for all women and girls, rights, equality, and empowerment. Our discussion today would reaffirm our commitment to accelerating action for all women and girls, ensuring their rights, equality, and empowerment. Even though we've had progress in empowering women, we still face a lot of systemic biases, and inequalities that hinder our full participation in society. So this discussion today is to rally all of us to amplify the voices of women and girls, and also to discuss some of the challenges that we face and what we can do to empower ourselves. I would introduce our moderator for today. She is Madame Ama Osei-Sapon. She's an oil and gas professional with a career spanning a decade. She specializes in upstream exploration and energy transition in Africa. She's currently an exploration team lead and asset coordinator at ENI, and she also is the impact lead Ghana Circle for Lean-In Equity and Sustainability. Ama is deeply passionate about empowering women and championing diversity within the energy spaces. Sorry, before I hand over to Ama, I forgot to introduce myself. It's still quite very early morning at my end. So my name is Shina Owusu-Ansah, and I am the DNI. I'm on the Africa Technical Committee team as the DNI lead. I am also currently the director for the Ghana section. I'm a senior geologist with 15 years of experience in the upstream industry. I'm a strong advocate for women and girls taking on leadership position, and then also increasing women and girls in STEM. So I'll hand over to Ama, and then she would introduce our important speakers to us today, and then the discussions would take over. Thank you. Over to you, Ama.
Thank you very much, Sheena. Happy International Women's Day to everyone on the panel and to our distinguished speakers as well. Sheena, thank you for the opportunity to moderate this session. So as we know what the theme is about, we are going to delve into a discussion that is very powerful, and the conversation needs to be had and continued even outside of this room. We are accelerating action for all women and girls in Africa. And today, we bring together an outstanding panel of leaders across STEM, governance, sustainability, diversity, you name it. I mean, you've seen the flyers, so you know the solid panel that we have today. And their journeys exemplify resilience, innovation, and commitment to gender equity. Today, our theme is Accelerate Action for All Women and Girls. And this reminds us that while progress has been made in accelerating action, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. So gender equality is not just about fairness or just the discussions in the room, but we need to unlock Africa's full potential. And for that, we have a solid team that I'm going to introduce today. So allow me to introduce our speakers. The first one we have is Madame Rashida Saleh, and she is the head of Human Resource and Treasury at Oriental Energy Resources Limited. Madame Rashida is a seasoned non-executive director and HR. So she's into the treasury and contract management. She's a treasury and contract management professional with over 25 years of experience collectively, including 15 years in senior leadership across finance, the oil and gas industry in the sub-Saharan Africa. She excels in strategy, talent management, and governance, and currently she leads HR and treasury at Oriental Energy Resource Limited. She also serves as an independent non-executive director at VFD Group. So I know we can't do a round of applause, but I want you to keep the comment section interactive. Show some love for Madame Rashida Saleh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just summarizing the profiles of our speakers. I would encourage all of us to look them up on LinkedIn, try and interact with them even after this conversation. Our next speaker is Madame Aseye Mimi Nusuga. I hope I got the surname correct. She's a programs manager at the Schlumberger Foundation. Madame Aseye she's a Ghanaian civil engineer with 17 years of experience at Schlumberger, leading operations across Africa and France. She rose from a cementing field engineer in Gabon to the business line manager in Nigeria and West Africa. And now she's a programs manager at Schlumberger Foundation in France. She supports over 100 plus STEM PhD graduate students, as well as inspiring women in engineering. Throughout her career, she's been crossing borders, breaking barriers in male-dominated industry, and Aseye has embraced all the challenges that come with being in her field. So again, show some love for Madam Aseye in the comment section. I'll move on to our next speaker. As you know, it's a D&I conversation. So what is a D&I conversation without mixing our females with a male representative? So we have Mr. Olu Waseyitan, Olu Tola. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I hope I got the pronunciations correct. He's a well site engineer with NEPL. Mr. Siyatan holds a BSc in engineering and an MSc in petroleum engineering as well. He is a well site engineer with NEPL and an active SPE volunteer. He serves on the ALP subcommittee, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and as well as SPE Cares. He led the 2023 International Men's Day event on mental health awareness. Very passionate about inclusivity, and he advocates for diverse perspective. Give the comment section a reaction again for our third speaker. Our final speaker, who is going to join our panel, she is Madame Jamila Masamba. She's an HSC manager at Central Africa for Schlumberger, SLB. Madame Jamila is an HSC professional with 12 years of experience in the energy sector across sub-Saharan Africa. As the Central African HSC manager at SLB, she oversees oil fields operations, audit, compliance. Previously, she led HSC and environmental roles in Congo, Angola, East Africa. Holding a master's degree in energy management, she actively supports conversations and efforts with HELP Congo. So show some love for Madame Jamila. As you can see, the speaker lineup is a very solid one. So you know that it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So let's get straight into the discussion without wasting too much time. We don't have a lot of time. I want us to focus our conversation firstly on breaking barriers in leadership and governance. For instance, I'll start with you, Madame Rashida. As you know, it's International Women's Day. Women leadership conversations across Africa still face a lot of structural barriers, particularly in the energy industry. And Madame Rashida, you have had a successful career navigating senior roles, both in HR and corporate governance. So from your experience, what do you think are some of the critical barriers that women who are attaining leadership positions face? And how can companies, organizations create a truly inclusive governance framework?
Thank you so much. Good morning, all, and thank you all for joining us today. And I'd like to also thank my fellow guest speakers. I mean, It's just an impressive array of people, and I'm so honored to be, in this room with all of you. Thank you for the question, and I'm sure you're all aware. I would just like to highlight some of the barriers that women face, particularly in Africa. So we could start off like, workplace policies and practices. These are some of the structural barriers to women in leadership. We have gendered leadership norms. We have lack of access to networks. I'm going to just break down each of these points, but I wanted to just bring it out. Then there's also institutionalized discrimination. Then we have serious gaps in our legal policies. And then there's societal and cultural expectations. So I think I'll start with the societal and cultural expectations. We're all Africans here, and I don't need to delve or give you a definition of what I mean by that. But one of the main barriers or structural barriers that women face, in terms of societal and cultural expectations, is the unequal distribution of labor. Now we all know that women carry the heavier burdens of household and caregiving responsibilities, which do tend to impact on our careers, on our career ambitions, because if we're focusing, we have so many responsibilities as caregivers, and household, and that also impacts our leadership journeys, even our career journeys. It's a serious issue. I know that everyone has this experience in either directly or indirectly. And then we have cultural norms against female leadership, also prevalent in Africa, discouraging women from pursuing leadership positions. I was having a conversation with a relative of mine a few days ago, and she, narrated an experience where she said, growing up, you know, there were certain expectations from family that, said, no, you can't go into this field. It's either a male dominated field. Women can't be engineers. You should be thinking more about, okay, maybe studying something that's easy for women to manage and then get married, have a family. So that was, the perception, or is still the perception actually in some places. I'm happy to say it's changing, especially with the younger generation, with technology and information being easily accessible to everyone. So those norms are changing, but it's still actually a serious barrier that women are still contending with today. Then I'll go to structural barriers like workplace policies and practices. When organizations don't have or they lack family-friendly policies that are geared towards women. For example, maybe flexible work arrangements, child support, parental leave. Those are some barriers that do affect women, in their careers, especially when you want to grow. And I know organizations are changing, they're evolving, they're getting better. Speaking from my own experience here, in Nigeria, we're actually changing. For example, in my office, we had enough space, and we actually created a creche, for
Okay.
women that had, I mean, it was a small place. It was really nice. We put a carpet, TV, air conditioning, had toys and everything. So a lot of my colleagues, who had young children or young babies really felt comfortable coming to work because they could come with their kids. They, come with their nannies. I mean, there was a bathroom available to them. I mean, it may seem small, to a lot of people in that context, but it was very important. And it was something that I started my career in banking before I moved into oil and gas about 10 years ago. And throughout all my years, my 28 plus years in banking, none of the banks I worked in actually had that provision, for women. So you can imagine in a challenging environment like a bank, and I had friends, colleagues who had small children, but I could see them. I had a friend actually in Abuja who her baby would come with the driver and she would dash downstairs and breastfeed the child in the car. Yeah, and then come back and go. So in Oriental, we decided to do things differently. And we had a space and we created it. And it was important. I did, it was a small win, but I think it was also a big win, for us as well. Then another structural barrier to women in leadership is the promotion and evaluation bias. Now, women tend to be evaluated more harshly than men. You know, when it comes to job evaluations, you know, even evaluating them on projects and things like that, you know, they're always overlooked for promotion. And this is something that cuts across all industries. You know, I'm sure it's resonating with a lot of people that are here um, in the audience. Um, Another thing is unequal pay and gender gaps. You know, gender gap, pay gap, it still persists. You know, so with all
Mm.
these points, I'll still come out with, you know, ways that these can be mitigated against. Then we also have what we call gendered leadership norms, where leadership traits are associated with masculine qualities, you know. So it makes it more difficult for women to be perceived as strong leaders. I'm sure, you know, you can, I'm sure we've come across, you know, some of these terms or these words where they would say, oh, you're too aggressive. You know, that's what they like
Yeah.
to call strong women leaders. You know, we're too aggressive, but you know, in a negative way. But you don't see them talking about their male, you know, counterparts like that. You know,
Yeah.
we're too assertive. So you know that double blind dilemma where we're being criticized for being assertive, but when men are assertive, they're not being criticized for being assertive. So you know, it's that double, you know, bind and thing. Then another important barrier, you know, to leadership, I think, is the lack of access to networks and mentorship. You know, this
Mm.
old boys culture, you know, the informal networks and sponsorships. That's how the men, you know, move ahead and they advocate for themselves. But it's changing, you know. I mean, would love it to be faster and, you know, better, but it's actually changing. So
Right.
we have, for example, we have Women in Energy Network in Nigeria. So that is, it's a professional body for women in all aspects of the energy sector. I mean, it's amazing. It's fantastic. I'm a member of that. We also have WIMBIZ, which is for women in business, so, politics, entrepreneurs, and everything. Also, network of women. I mean, we have the SPE, but I mean, it's not fully just for women. These
Mm.
other organizations are, you know. So, I mean, it's changing the mindset, the perception, the culture is changing. We're having a lot of you know, women-only networks. We're networking. I mean, some of the things the women do in at WIAN and WIMBAs is impressive, you know, almost on a daily basis. Whenever there are opportunities, networking, conferences, they're calling us out, come out,
Yeah.
or we're having a stand there, come and support and things like that. So it is improving, it's getting better, and I'm extremely hopeful. Then, you know, we also have the issue of institutionalized discrimination, you know, the glass ceiling. For example, I was just reading a couple of days ago, there was a study that says, in a poll of the Fortune 500 companies, that do you know only 10% women hold CEO positions, and this is Fortune 500 companies, you know.
Wow.
So 10%, I mean, it's a step, but you know, we'd want to see those numbers grow, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'd also like to use this opportunity to say that in Nigeria, we're seeing a lot of progress now. We have a lot of bank MD CEOs that are women. I think off the top of my head, I think I could count about 5 or 6, and of major banks, you know, you know, large banks, not just small
Yeah.
banks, massive banks. You know, we have women that are CEOs of our discos, that's our electricity distribution companies. You know, we have, and then in the political space, I don't play much in that, but I don't think we're performing as well in that space as we are maybe in the private sector, you know, where we have more women. We have a woman who is the chairman of the National Nigerian Gas Association at the moment, you know, which is also a big win for us. So
Right.
it's changing, and all that. So so another issue, another problem was fewer, female mentors and role models. But like I said, it's changing,
Yeah.
and the underrepresentation of women in leadership, but it's changing. You can see there's some, positively, I think we're moving in the right direction. For example,
Mm.
there's the CBN has a guideline, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, where there should 30% there should be 30% representation of women on boards, which is a very good thing. Nigeria doesn't have a formal legal um, policy or document mandating, the number of
Mm.
women that should be on boards, but there are guidelines. So
Okay.
CBN has come out with that, and a couple of other organizations. So people are actually, you know, paying attention and trying to do something about it. I know in the private sector side, a number of companies are now actively looking to recruit women. I mean, I've been approached, to
Mm.
ask for women. And also, they're also looking for representation from the north, from northern Nigeria, because we don't have a lot of representation from, of women on boards. Again,
Yeah.
and that is mostly a cultural thing, which we're trying to change. In fact, I found out, a few days ago, my sister actually told me this, that, she has a friend that they have a group of women, a network of women that are all PhD holders from the north. I was in shock. I didn't
Wow.
know. And I'm like, please, I need to find out more about this. But
Mhm.
then you see, because of the way our culture and society is, northern Nigerian women, should I say, we don't project ourselves. We don't, branding, is something we
Mm.
don't do. But we're trying to change the narrative, because I know I have people come up to me and say, oh, they're looking for women to sit on boards. They want northern Nigerian women. They can't find anyone. And I sit down and I reel off 20 names, and they're like, what? I said, yes. But then because the awareness isn't there and we're not projecting ourselves, so that is something that needs to change, and all that. Then,
That,
sorry, oh, were you saying
no,
something?
carry on. Carry
Oh,
on.
okay. Then I did mention legal and policy gaps where we don't have actual, firm legal quotas, for affirmative action, and then maybe weak anti-discriminatory laws, Then, apart from the structural barriers to women in leadership, we have the cultural barriers, which, I have mentioned, but I'll just reiterate again. We have things like gender stereotypes and expectations, which I mentioned earlier. It's still prevalent, especially in Nigeria and Africa. And then traditional gender roles where, they expect women to be, to go and study, maybe, what should I say? English literature. Not that there's anything wrong with those subjects, but they want you to go and study feminine, gentle courses. What less emphasis on what is deemed as masculine courses. But I'm happy to say that's changing. The narrative is changing slowly, but it is changing. You know, um, Women are expected to prioritize family and caregiving responsibility over career ambitions. You know, Again, it's changing slowly, but it can change faster, you know.
Okay.
So these expectations where we're, to prioritize family, they also create it's a barrier to women leadership advancement. And then again,
Mm.
some cultures where they actively or they discourage women from pursuing careers in politics, and other what they call male dominated fields like the sciences, STEM, and
Yeah.
everything. Then we also have, well, I think I've touched on workplace, discrimination and bias, lack of role models and mentors. Then we have another sensitive topic, should I say religious norms,
Mm.
where some our cultures, religious traditional beliefs, where they limit women's participation in leadership, by reinforcing, the male perspective, male dominance in decision-making roles. That's still a
Yeah.
challenge in Africa. I mean, it cuts across everywhere. All these, patriarchal, sorry, values. that dictates that women should be subordinate to men. It's changing. We've had a lot of progress, but it's still prevalent in some area, in some areas. Then another issue is work-life balance. That's a challenge, because as women advance higher in the leadership ladder, there's a lot of demands on your time, like long hours in the office, travel. You need to be constantly available. It can be difficult for women, especially where they are in cultures where they're bearing the household responsibilities and childcare responsibilities. So we also have legal restrictions in some countries, that limit women's economic participation. And then most importantly, unequal access to education is a problem. We have a lot of out of school children, particularly in northern Nigeria, and the large percentage of that, is girls. So we still have areas where families or fathers don't believe that educating a girl child is a priority. We need to change that narrative. It's changing, but it can be better. We can do more. We must advocate more for the girl child, to ensure that they have equal access to not just any type of education, but quality um, education. So
Yeah.
some ways that we can break these barriers, particularly the cultural ones, is, we have to change people's mindsets, and that's through education and awareness, advocacy, just, pushing the narrative, trying to get people to change. It's very difficult to get people to change cultural norms and everything, but you just have to, we can't give up. We just have to keep reinforcing the message. There's a saying that
Yeah.
says you educate a girl child and you educate a nation or a community. And I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
been proven, all over the place. You find out that women that have gone to school, that are educated, it's most likely, I don't know the exact percentage, that her children will also go to school, So if we can drive that, girl child education, you find out that it's most likely that her own children will also go to school. So we have to also advocate for policy changes, implementing quotas, mentorship programs, family friendly policies. We also have to
Yeah.
encourage our male allies. There are a lot of them. We have them there, so we need to encourage them. Not bring them down, but encourage them and continue to engage them to advocate for gender inclusive leadership. And we also have to highlight our female leaders. We have to showcase them, as role
Mm.
models to inspire the next generation. Like I mentioned, I spoke specifically about women in northern Nigeria, and I did mention a group of PhD holders that I just found out about. So those are the kind of people we need to showcase. We need to highlight. We need to bring them out, not just in northern Nigeria, but across Nigeria and Africa, you know highlight these women, showcase them so that they're role models for the younger generation. And it shows that, yes, we can do it. Despite the challenges, we can do it. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
basically what and I just wanted to say something about myself a little, personally. And I
Mm-hmm.
was lucky because I didn't face a lot of these barriers. My parents were both well educated, firm believers in education. We're all
Mm.
highly, educated in my house. And when I started my banking career, and throughout my banking career, I was lucky enough to work with strong women. So most of my group heads, my unit heads, my divisional heads, my general managers were all women. So that was an advantage. So I've always had
Mm.
strong women, leaders, women mentors, especially when I was in the banking industry. And even when I joined Oriental, our first chief executive was a woman. So, and I'm also proud to say, and every opportunity I have, to say this, I do say it. In Oriental, most of our leadership are women. Our
Okay.
our CFO, our chief financial officer, is a woman. Our legal director is a woman. Our head of technical is a woman. Our head of supply chain is a woman. Our head of subsea is a woman. And I'm the head of HR. So, I mean, it's fantastic, when we're going out for meetings or we have people coming in and you're seeing all the strong, powerful women sitting at the table
Yeah.
at such, in such roles, it's a thing to be proud of. And I always talk about it and highlight it when I can. So
Think
thank you.
what Oriental is doing is an amazing, they've set the pace for a lot of companies, and I wish um, a lot of companies would follow suit. And particularly when you mention that there's a nursery, that is something that you hardly find in the industry these days. And like you said, the progress has been slow, but the key word is acceleration. And you broke down the barriers very meticulously. It would be nice to see in the earliest as possible policies that mandate companies to ensure that there is more representation of women in boardrooms. So thank you so much, Madam Rashida,
Thank
for
you.
your submission.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move to women in STEM. So for instance, um, Madam Aseye, you have had an extensive career in a male-dominated industry where you see a lot of underrepresentation of women in leadership levels. Your career has spanned from Africa to Europe. I mean, you've been across the world and back. I want you to discuss with us how you were able to make that transition from being from a technical role to a leadership position, which is something that a lot of women face. Typically, you see that you have, for instance, a hardcore geologist, and then when it's time for MD position or CEO role, they will take someone in the non-technical field to lead. So what challenges have you faced in making this shift? And what would you advise young African women looking for to lead in STEM roles?
All right. Thank you, Amma. Um, First, I would like to thank you for inviting me and being on the panel with this very, very talented and a woman and a guy who will be able to tell the group what we've gone through and what we see going on around us. As you read in my bio, I was a cementing engineer, trainee, and I started in Gabon on land rigs. On my first time on the rig, I entered the mess. The whole place went quiet. I was the only girl there, the only woman in there. It wasn't so, I was not bothered. And as Rashida said, I grew up without those barriers. I wanted to do STEM, so I did STEM. I did science in Ola Girls Senior High School. Went to tech, did civil engineering, and I did civil engineering because one, I didn't like biology and chemistry, and then I loved math and physics, and the only thing that I wanted to do was civil engineering because of roads and the structures. So there was no barrier. My parents were very supportive. Everything around me didn't bother me. So when I got there, I was the only girl there. It didn't really faze me much. The only thing I needed to do was to get the understanding, get the skills, and get it done. And of course, with that, it really helps you with working together with the people on the rig. So for Schlumberger at the time, SLB now, it was typical for cementing engineers to spend about a year to two on the field and learning the rudiments of cementing operations on the rig. And then you come to the office to learn about the designs, the chemicals, and all the other things we use for a cementing job. So for me, I spent about just a year on the rig and in Gabon, and then I got moved to Congo. And in Congo, immediately I was assigned a couple of clients. And typically you would think being assigned a client, still doing the design, going to the rig to pump, you're not in leadership role. It might not have the name, it might not have the connotation, but really you are leading a small team, but without the name or the responsibilities to it, because you do have your internal clients who are the lab that you deal with to run your lab tests for you, the maintenance team to ensure that your equipment are ready to go, the supply chain team to make sure that your whatever chemicals that has been ordered is in country for you to use, your logistics teams who are going to move your chemicals to the rig for you, right? So you manage these people, and then your outside, your external clients, who is your clients, you are managing these people. So you are a leader. You are making sure everything works well in concert for delivery to your clients. And in all this, you've learned how to manage people. You've developed your emotional intelligence. You've developed your communication skills, and then you're building trust. These are all of the things that you need as a leader, and more. But then at this point, I picked up all of these things, and which really set me on the path to become a leader. But I would have to add that here that in SLB, we do have very structured system for engineers, field specialists in that regard, right? We are structured, you get in as a trainee, you have models you do to get to the next point, to get to the next point, to get to the next point, where you become what we call general field engineer or general field specialist, which is where they deem you ready to start leadership roles. So it is structured. When you're getting delayed, your managers are asked what is happening for them to move you along to get there. So you learn all of these things when you are in this in this track, in this trajectory. By the time you get to the general field engineer, you would have learned about all the other aspects of the company, be it legal, be it supply chain, be it HR. You learn a bit of that. It is more like you're doing your final year final year projects, right, in school. You are quizzed on, or no, not quizzed, you are asked and tested on what you have learned in all that, and then you actually do to present a project which have the connotation of every part of that. So by the time you get to where they deem you ready, they have prepared you. So it is really structured, and it is easy and easy in a point, not like some other companies to get there. Now, you have developed your technical skills as you're dealing with clients and talking to people within the company. You've developed your communication skills, you've developed your emotional intelligence to deal with people, and you have built trust. So by the time you get to the leadership role, you are ready. The transition becomes a bit smoother than somebody that didn't have that. So that was the case for me. It became smoother, but I made sure I developed my leadership skills through communication, emotional intelligence, building trust, and technical skills. And then by the time I got to the leadership role, you need to have a mindset change. Now you need to start looking at the strategic aspects of the operations, of how things are done, the business. You need to now look at how to delegate appropriately and correctly to the people so you could work on that. You need to know how to manage people in terms of their growth, and as well as the growth of the company, what is needed at that point in time. And you are given resources to do that in SLB. I would have to admit, you are given resources to do that. So we get to do that. And I did that, and that helped me continue to progress. So I would say it's not easy, I would have to add, but it was not that difficult. And Schlumberger is really not a company that discriminates. They sent a very young girl from Ghana to a French-speaking country to go to the rig and give you responsibilities. Like, why would they do that? They trust that they have recruited the best. They have
Yeah.
taught you what you need to do, and then you'll be able to do that, and you're the face of the company when you're on the rig. So you've already started that leadership role. You just need to ensure that that is in your head and put it together and do that. And then
Right.
as you do projects, make sure you are gaining that that network to for that support to help you when the position comes. You did mention that you could be a geologist and be there for years and you're bypassed, right? But you also need to do the aspect of making sure people know what you do, what you are doing, what you are bringing to the table. You need to also make sure you let them know you are interested to be a leader. You
Exactly.
cannot be doing what you're doing and think they will go like, oh, we can make Amma the country manager if you don't ask. I can bet you the men have gone to ask. They've gone to tell them in 10 years, I want to be that. And
Yeah.
are already looking at what they need to do to get there. But the women are always assume that, oh, if they see how hard I'm working, they would recognize that and then give me. No, you need to let them know you want that, because the assumption is always the woman will start a family and might not have time, right? Start a family and might not have time, but you need to let them know, yes, I do have time. These are the plans I've put in place, and I want to see myself in 5 years there, right? So you need to talk. If you don't talk, nobody knows what you nobody knows what you want. They cannot assume, they cannot think for you. So that is what I would advise anybody that wants to be in leadership role. Let them know. Let them know what you have done, what you have built for yourself. Let them know where you want to be. And then when the talk is coming, and then network, because the network you have, the sponsors you have are the ones that are going to put your name in the mix when they're discussing promotion. They're discussing all of those things. Make sure you are seen. That is what our advice.
Awesome. Madam Asi, I think you touched on very key point that it's not just sitting down and waiting for the opportunity to come. You need to be proactive, to be visible, to be vocal, and also have that willingness to want to show interest in leadership. I think that's something that the audience is going to home with us. Thank you very much for your submission. I'm going to move to an interesting conversation that we hardly hear about when we are discussing D&I conversations. Mr. Oluwaseyitan, you are a strong male ally, a D&I advocate, and you believe that men actually play a role in championing gender equity. But an issue that is almost like a taboo in Africa is mental health in the professional space. You lead conversations on International Men's Day, mental health awareness. So what steps do you think that African workplaces need to do to create a more psychological safe space where both men and women can exist, and especially women can be more feel safe to be in a workplace without experiencing any kind of stigma in relation to mental health and career progression?
Thank you very much for having me. Happy International Women's Day to all our women on the call. That's a very great question. And, yes, I'll just run off the bat by actually citing two studies, one from 2017 and another from 2022, which actually shows that we have a net female skew in those that suffer from mental illnesses. That's actually quite unfortunate, but we have to recognize that it's there. First and foremost, I think our battles are fought when we recognize that mental illness is actually just another dimension to illnesses in Africa, which we suffer, like malaria or typhoid. It's just a different dimension. And this means we need to decouple it from a largely spiritualist view.
Mm.
And that's where we have to start from. Then again, we also have to show, just reading from the studies before me, that we have to destigmatize it from that spiritualist view. You know, a lot of times we see people saying, mental portion is not, a mental illness is not my portion. But the facts and studies show that there's mental illness sufferers in Africa, despite much of the prayers that we've prayed in the time past. So yes, we need to decouple it from a largely spiritualist view. That means we have to go to the root of the issues. First and foremost, we have to create that system that is devoid of fear. That's the first point. We must have that openness of culture. And this has been stressed by the previous two speakers, which are very valid points in their own right. Yes, we have to have that culture of openness. And then we need to dissociate from largely cultural stereotypes, which was actually the point that was made by our previous two speakers as well. You know, I don't have much more to say, but yes, I will continue on that line. Remember, quality of mental health will affect your output in the workplace. And the studies actually shows this. It shows that when we focus on mental health issues, our absenteeism rates go down by 33%. Our productivity grows by about 12%. So offices should tend to prioritize check-ins. And this means having to deviate from just concrete KPI-based objectives and going to holistic measures. Okay, looking at how things are happening, how it's affecting your quality of life, and then also prioritizing work and life balance. For instance, my company, which I work for, also offers confidential therapy sessions for those that are interested. And I think that's also a good way to also advance this communication without the fear and stigma for both men and women. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Did I get your name right? Can you pronounce the name for me to make sure that I'm doing a good job?
So the name is Oluwaseyitan, but you can call me
Okay,
Sheyi
let
for
me
the
say
purposes of
Olua
this.
for the purpose of today.
Oluwa means God, so you can call me Sheyi for the purposes of this.
Okay. Okay, thank you
Yes,
so
I think
much.
that would be simpler.
Thank you, thank you. So thank you for addressing the issue of mental health. I think it's one that we don't talk about too often, but needs a lot of attention because we spend majority of our time in the workplace, over 8 hours. If you don't feel psychologically and mentally safe, how can you produce quality work for the organizations that we work with? So thank you very much. Let's move on to our final speaker, Madam Jamila. You are championing women in HSC, sustainability, climate action, and if we are being honest, it is women who are mostly affected by climate change, yet we remain underrepresented in the environmental and HSC decision-making roles. So in your opinion, how do you think we can amplify women's leadership but focusing it on sustainability, which has become the latest buzzword, and climate resilience efforts in Africa?
Good morning, everyone. So thank you, Shina. Thank you, Hannah, and special appreciation to my fellow guest speakers. And it's really a pleasure to be part of the discussion today. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So thanks for the question. First, before we can dive into the subject, I think it's important to remind that since we are discussing high-risk industries and the position of females in those work environments, I think it's important to remind that we have 3 categories of population in high-risk industry or wherever, and those are known as vulnerable populations. And we have newcomers, all-class employees approaching retirement, and pregnant women. So the newcomers, because they lack the experience, but they have the willingness to learn and the eagerness to demonstrate the capabilities. While the old class approaching retirement, they have a bunch of experience, pretty much rely on that experience, but they are not always open to behavior change or organizational strategy change. And then we have the pregnant women in workplace because of their
conditional health situations. Now, it's also important to know that women should not feel different from men in terms of competencies, knowledge, and leadership skills to deliver whatever the task is. And I can assure you that everything goes with determination and willingness to grow and outperform. I think Mimi nailed it well on developing yourself, getting the knowledge, getting the experience, pushing forward to your career developments. However, gender differences in high-risk industry can be appreciated in other aspects. Just to clarify, the risk perception of behaviors and the exposures to hazard. So here are some key things I would like to consider, starting with the risk perception of behaviors. First, studies has demonstrated that men are more likely to engage in risky behaviors compared to women, I would say. And this can refer to appreciation of probability and severity of negative outcome. They are really ready to go, while women will be more appreciative of the risk, assessing what could be the negative outcome of my decision. Second, women are more prone to work-related stress, burnout, and workplace mobbing, and this because of gender balance, stereotypes, discrimination, and role conflicts, while men encounter more physical violence due to the nature of the task and higher representation in high-risk role. So on the second point about the hazard exposures, I would like to refer you more on the working condition, the safety measures and equipment available in high-risk industry. We see many safety measures, facilities, and equipment are designed with men in mind, mostly, and which lead to discomfort and increased risk of injury for women. And this include, you would see in majority of industry, female are provided with inappropriately sized PPEs. They are either larger or too small, compromising both comfort and safety. The second point, the physical demands of many jobs, whether it's lighting up objects or standing for many hours, often assume that all workers have the same body shape, type of physical strength or composition, which means that the task designed for male workers can sometimes be too demanding for women, putting themselves at great risk. So this is where high-risk industry needs to develop strong policies to embrace and empower gender inclusion, starting from education awareness program addressing the knowledge around the gender contribution, specific health program to align with the previous contribution, respect and professionalism education for the staff, and also industry need to look at the workplace facilities, accommodation and organization, personal protective equipment as we discussed. So leaders, as part of the change in high-risk industry and along with the climate change, need to create a culture where women will feel comfortable reporting safety concerns without fear or retaliation, ensuring that the leadership visibility is visibly committed to gender equality and safety. The leaders establish support networks and mentorship program for women in high-risk industry, for instance. We see this network can provide guidance, share experiences, and offer support, helping women feel more empowered and connected, where they can easily share the fears and also experiences across the board. They also need to promote or conduct regular safety audits in the workplace. We focus to identifying and mitigating risk specific to women in workplace, where we see a proactive approach to help continuously improving safety standards and addressing emerging issues. Speaking from Central Africa perspectives, according to the discussion we've had, we see a lot of oil and gas companies operating in Central Africa, and the company I'm working for is really pushing in terms of elevating the standard of inclusion, elevating the standard of working condition. But when we look at the local community and all the field where females operate, I think there are still quite a lot to do in these regards, and a lot of improvement and a lot of implication from the community and the decision makers. In coordination with the sustainability and climate change, We also need to see drive on policy making. So policies that will tailor requirement to have women represented in decision-making processes at all levels so that they don't feel the weight of decision taken by others, but they feel included in those decisions so that they can come with the contribution, because women's unique perspective and experience can lead to more effective and inclusive climate policies. So two, on these sustainability things, we also need to provide women with access to education, specialized training in environmental science. We used to have females developing in administrative things, but I'm happy now we are seeing the drive on females embracing the STEM domains. So it's important for governments to promote education in environmental science, laws, and leadership. And this will empower them with the knowledge and skills needed to lead sustainability initiatives across the countries and across the region, across the world. But for this to happen, we also need to have financial resources and support for women-led sustainability projects. This can include grants, microfinancing, investment in women-owned business focused on environmental protection. But to grasp or cover all those aspects, it's important to also have a program to encourage and support grassroots movement led by women. These initiatives often have a profound impact on local community and can drive, I think, significant environmental changes. I think I've said quite a lot. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just realized that I joined previously with my laptop. My video wasn't on. So apologies to our speakers. But interesting conversations we've had, very key, solid points that have been delivered by all of our speakers. I mean, we have so much that we are going to take home with, but I want to give each and every one the opportunity. Audience, you have been faithful and listened throughout. I'm sure you have questions on your mind. How can we take this conversation to the next step? Not just to keep the conversations in this room. So I'd like to open the floor now for questions to come up. Just put up your hand. You will be unmuted and then shoot with your questions. We'll take about 2 or 3, and then we can wrap up the discussion for today. Okay, so while we are waiting for the audience question, I would like to ask from the questions that we received earlier on regarding workplace. Okay, regarding the workplace challenges. So, for instance, when it comes to hiring and retention, there's a lot that I feel organizations need to do. I'm going to go back to Madame Rashida. And in 1 or 2 minutes, if you can highlight what you have seen from your experience, how women can be retained and empowered in the workplace.
Okay, thank you so
Oh,
much.
there's a hand up. So after Madame Rashida gives her submission, then we'll take the question from Patrick. Thank you. So Madame Rashida, in 2-3 minutes, just let us know what you think about this.
Okay, so I'll talk about some retention policies that can be put in place, or that we've put in place, to.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh no, my audio is on. Can you hear me?
Okay, no, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, so some of these, I had touched on earlier in my presentation. So I think one of the things that a company can do to retain the female employees, first and foremost, is flexible working arrangements. We saw with COVID in 2020 that it was possible. to do, prior to that, the norms or where everyone had to be at work, and that's the only way a company could function. But COVID changed all that, and you found out that you can actually work from home and still work successfully, and things were moving on. So flexible work arrangements where maybe you have flexible resumption times, flexible closing times, maybe a hybrid structure. Those are some of the things that would endear female employees and would also encourage them, to be retained, because you find that that is a challenge for a lot of women, especially for women who are just starting out with their families. Trying to balance the two with work and family is an issue. So a flexible work arrangement is something that could help. Another thing, I mentioned the child support, on-site childcare is very important, especially when you have a young workforce, those that are just starting out with their families. That's also, we had a scheme, like we have that in my office, and we did see the impact, it had on my colleagues. They were working, they worked harder. You could see they were happy. They were not worried about their children because their children were just, a floor below them. So that also helps in retaining women. Then mentorship programs and sponsorship. Like I said, having strong female leads that could mentor, the younger, women coming up is also very important, because it shows that, yes, somebody has done it, has gone through it, and I can achieve it. It also showcases this woman, to younger children that are in school, are thinking of which direction to go. Once they see these kind of, role models, and we're showcasing them, it actually encourages them, to follow in that step. Then leadership development programs, specifically geared towards women, is also very important. It would encourage, retaining, your female employees, and then letting them
Mm-hmm.
have access to, female networks. We actively encourage, our employees to join professional bodies. The company actually pays for it. So, I mean, there's no excuse for you not to join, such networking, such organizations which present opportunities for you to network. It's also very important. Then having clear policies on anti discrimination, harassment. I mean, this needs to be very
Yeah.
clearly set out, in your employee handbook, with also strong enforcement mechanisms, so women know
Mm.
that they feel safe in their environment, they feel they will be heard when issues come in. So that's very important. So these are some of the, strategies that companies can put in place to retain employees. Then basically on recruitment, one thing that is very important is, do not, when you're sending out when you're recruiting, please avoid biased language in your recruitment notices.
Mm.
There's some ways where you see a recruitment notice on it, you can tell it's actually biased. So it should be unbiased, it should be ungendered is the word, so that when people are looking at it, it shows that, oh, okay, here's an opportunity. They don't care whether you're a man or a woman. It's an
Yeah.
equal opportunity for everyone. So that's also important, and
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you,
thank you.
thank you. So I'm gonna move to Patrick. You had a question. Just unmute yourself and direct your question to which speaker you want.
Yeah, good day, everybody. My name is Patrick from Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Thank you for this presentation thus far. I find it very interesting because I'm a he for she supporter. So thus far, I just want to highlight something with respect to safety and sustainability, and throwing this question to the second speaker. I'm trying to get her name. Okay, the lady that spoke about sustainability. So I just want to, also add that, is it possible to, most of the companies which I have been opportune to work with, I still see that issue of having some leaders who know that these are the things that they should do revolving around gender equality, and they still violate it. So we, the young professionals, will try as much as possible to help. Or is it possible to draft? How possible is it to make these policies so strong that when a management that doesn't support this gender equality thing, they should be penalized, so that when they don't do the right thing, they would probably leave the office for people who are so supportive about this thing. Because the ladies and the young professionals who have worked with, they are so innovative that you have no option but to support them. But if you have a system that don't ensure that these things are done right, all our message will not go down to the right people. Thank you.
Perfect. So this question is to Madam Jamila, correct?
Yeah, I think the question goes to me. Thank you very much for the question, and
Yes.
very good. So, everything starts with the vision of the company. We can have things being driving at the local community level. We can have things being driving at certain level of the organization, but we have to start first with the vision. Where are we going? What do we want to achieve? Because I believe those are part of the UN SDGs goals, Sustainable Development Goals. And you will see at different level of the organization, those things are being driven at government levels. They are driving at international community level because they will have appreciation of things that are being done in the respective companies that are ready to embrace the change. Because the sustainability here, we are not just talking about the carbon emission reduction, but we are also talking about the gender balance, which is part of the discussion we are having now. But everything will start with the vision. What do we want to achieve? Are we just taking it as KPIs to tick the box, or are we taking it as an approach to change things? And those things can be affected by the stakeholders we are working with. If you are an oil and gas service provider, you are probably working with oil and gas operators or energy operators, and those energy operators will have strict and firm objectives toward the service providers. And this is where the push will come to making sure the leadership is demonstrating the commitment to align with the key indicators. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Jamila. There's another hand up. Benedict Norte, please unmute and feel free to ask your question.
Okay, so my question is to the first speaker, I think Madam Jamila. She said that women tend to get harder evaluations than men. I wanted her to throw more light on that, and then tell us about the factor that she thinks contributes to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Very, very valid ones. So what we see, the industry across the years and centuries have been built according to the main minds, the main perceptions, the main accommodations. And now we started discussing about how to integrate women into the same industry that have been mainly prevailing for mains. But do we have the resources? Do we have the financial capability to change everything because we want to have the female working with us? We will see in majority of the platforms is still, if you go to oil and gas platforms, you will still see females sharing the same bathroom or restroom as main, and which make it very uncomfortable for females working in such environment. You will sometimes see when you have to go to the field, I think maybe I can relate on this subject. You go to the oil field platform, there is not enough rooms and you have to share the room with one male and you don't have any clue of the background education of those people. And this is because we think there is no, it goes with the vision, it goes with the resource, it goes with the push from the government to making sure those things are happening. So female will feel the weight of the slow change we are seeing because there is a pressure to make sure females are being integrated. But at the end of the day, things are not progressing the way we want them to progress because they have been there. We cannot change the facility structures in a one click because we have 10 females working out of hundreds male in the workplace because we see more domination from male headcount than females. But everything goes with the vision, with what we want to achieve and how we can make those things being achieved, and also the drive from the leadership to make sure those things are happening. Otherwise, it will just be discussions, it will just be slogans, and at the end of the day, nothing will be happening. And this is where the female are feeling the pressure on feeling the weight of working in a work environment where it's more predefined for male. You see the layout of the benches, the layout of the facilities. You have to share the same toilet as males. You see the quality of tools. Sometimes the tax will require you to do the same job. You see the height of certain benches. Females are in majority in the same structures. They are not that much height, and they will have to work in the same condition as males because they cannot segregate the workshop. They cannot segregate layout for males and females, and this is where we feel that pressure. Hope I've responded to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here's what we're going to do. The conversation has been powerful, it's been impactful, very enlightening in my opinion. And each speaker has drawn us to a point where we can all see that a lot of work has been done right, yes, but the key word again for today is acceleration. I'm going to go to our speakers who didn't get the opportunity to get some questions. And I want you to give us just one powerful call to action that you and I and everyone in the audience can do today to accelerate this gender equality in Africa. Something very practical, something actionable that we can do. I'll start with Mr. Shea.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just one call to action is that our male allies must champion equity, not just with words, but with their actions. And this is the message for today, which is accelerate action for all women and girls, which is our theme for the IWD of 2025. So yes, champion with your actions and not just your words.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Champion with your actions and not just your words. Madam Aseye, give us a call to action as well.
Call to action: be visible, be mentored, and be a mentor. That is how
Awesome.
more women will see you, girls will see, and then they would follow suit. They just need to see a representation. They just not be able to see themselves in you. So if you're out there, they would come. They will flock to you.
Thank you. Very straight to the point. Be visible, be mentored, and all of that. So at this point, I'm going to hand over back to Sheena. Basically, we have learned so much collectively, whether you're in corporate leadership, governance, an aspiring young professional, know that your voice matters, your actions and your advocacy equally matters. So thank you very much to our amazing, insightful speakers. You have kept us engaged and you have pushed us forward. I believe that the conversation will move out of this room into the real world where we can take real action. So on this moment, we all need to accelerate progress for all. Sheena, thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate this. I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Amma, and thank you to our amazing panelists. And one thing is clear, that we all have a role to play in creating a world where women and girls can thrive. Before we sign off, I will call on Dr. Sarah Inouye, who is a standing committee member of the D&I Committee for Society of Petroleum Engineers International. She'll give us the closing remarks, please. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sheena. I've truly had a wonderful day. First of all, I'd like to say Happy International Women's Day to everyone. We need to celebrate. We deserve to celebrate because it's our day. I want to appreciate, first of all, our ARD. I think I saw him on the call. Thank you so much for taking SPE Africa to another level. And thank you so much. Thank you, Sheena, for what you're doing in the DNI committee to pull this event off. It's it's amazing. Sheena, you did very, very well. And thank you to all the committee members that have worked tirelessly to pull this through. Thank you to our speakers. You did justice to the topic. Excellent presentation. I really want to appreciate the moderator. You kept it very engaged. Your questions were apt and beautiful. Thank you, everyone. I just want to say one thing, just like my own closing thoughts. Whilst we try to advocate for equality, thankfully today most people spoke more about equity than equality. Let's advocate more for equity, like the last two speakers talked about, having limited resources for women in the workshops and having toilets that are not, fit for the feminine to utilize. So let's also try wherever we are to advocate more for equity. And I want to say that women are no longer where they used to be. There's an advancement, although we may not have all the metrics in and the statistical data, but we're no longer where we used to be. Things are getting better. So let's keep up the push. Let's accelerate action and ensure that in our little spaces, we are making impact. Finally, I'd like to encourage women to continue to professionally develop, let's continuously develop ourselves professionally. You can't be ignored when you're a professional. You will be sought after when you're a professional. Try to know the emerging trends and technologies in the spaces where you play. It's very important that we do that. When you talk and become a thought leader in your space, so many people want to do a lot of things at the same time. Pick your niche, sharpen your skills, sharpen it very well, and you will be known for that. And I tell you, you can't be ignored. So once again, thank you. And I give a thumbs up to everyone. We are SPE. Thank you. And I bring love from the SPDNI International, SPDNI Africa, SP Nigeria, SP Worry, where I am. Thank you so much. Love you, everyone. Please make sure you celebrate. Just take a drink, dance, and women, embrace and retain your femininity. You are not a man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Is the ARD still on the call? It'll be good to have a word from him if he's on. Dr. Riverson? Okay, I don't see him. Maybe he's gone off. I would also like to thank the DNI Africa committee members who also helped a lot to bring together this. Nidra Araba Hammond, or Yeboah, sorry. Nidra Araba Yeboah, Farida Dan Ali, and there was hey God, Chigbogu Cheji. He also was instrumental in bringing this together, and the rest of the committee, Damilola Adisa and Kosi Marian, Dr. Sarah Inui as well. And yeah, that's it. Before we go, I would like to remind you all, we have some two key upcoming events within the Africa region, which would love participation from all. The upcoming one in April, which starts from 3rd to the 5th of April, is the SPE Africa 2025 Annual Student Congress. And it will be held in Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria. There will be student paper contest, petrol ball, there will be career fairs, participation from the Nigeria Council, and participation from all other sections across the Africa region. We'll encourage a lot of you to attend and also support in whichever way you can. And then in May, we have the Africa, sorry, I'm looking for the name. We have the Africa Technology Conference in Tanzania on the theme Navigating the Future, Building Technological Excellence for Sustainable Energy in Africa. And again, would encourage all of you to attend if you can. There will be, apart from the conference, there's a very nice attraction being put together by the team for tourism and all of that. So we'll encourage you all to participate and also support in whichever way you can. Understand the ARD is back on the call. If we can have a final word from him before we close, please.
Yes, good morning and good night, good evening, wherever you find yourself. Special thanks to you, the DNI Chair for Africa, and all the team members you worked with. Today is a special day because we are celebrating the people in our lives who brought us to the world and still take care of us till we die. It's no other good time to discuss the involvedness and the inclusivity of ladies and wonderful women in the energy sphere and beyond. Special thanks to Moderator Ama and the various speakers we've heard from today. We've learned a lot, and I think one of the reasons why we would not stop advocating is that people need to understand, people need to hear. And the more they hear, the more we speak about it, I think the better things go for all of us. And this meeting, I know, is recorded and to be shared on all the platforms, especially on the Africa regional platforms, on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, for those who missed it to also enjoy it. And thanks to everybody that participated. All the questions I heard from Patrick, my sustainable friend from Port Harcourt. I heard from Congo. Very pleased to see all of you on this call. And thanks once again. And happy International Women's Day to everybody. We are here to celebrate you, ma'am. Thanks.
Thank you so much, ARD. Thank you. And once again, we truly, truly appreciate you all for joining us for today's panel discussion. As we go back to our various homes, offices, let's always have it at the top of our mind that acceleration starts with acts. Our actions and everything that we do also contributes to make the world a better place for every woman and for every girl. Once again, happy International Women's Day to everybody, all the women on the call. Thank you. Let's connect on LinkedIn, add the panelists, send them questions. If you were not able to ask your question on the call, you are free to send them a message on LinkedIn to get more clarifications. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Bye.